They say every man carries a ghost. For Gabriel Moretti, that ghost wore red lipstick and the scent of regret. Chicago's skyline glimmered against the winter night, glass towers reflecting the restless city below. In the back of a black Bentley, Gabriel Moretti, the man they called the gentleman boss, adjusted his cufflinks and exhaled slowly. Tonight was supposed to be simple, a dinner, a quiet promise of normalcy, something he hadn't tasted in years. Beside him sat Clara, his fiancée, beautiful, graceful, perfect on paper. Her laughter filled the car, light and polished, like champagne bubbles. She didn't know the full story of the man sitting next to her, few people ever did. But beneath the charm and power, Gabriel's chest carried a hollow space, one carved by a name he hadn't spoken in almost 2 years, the name he'd buried under money, business, and blood. The name that used to mean home. As the Bentley stopped in front of a high-end Italian restaurant on the north side, Gabriel offered his hand to Clara, his eyes calm, detached, like a man who'd learned to live without feeling too much. Cameras flashed as they entered. Paparazzi loved him. The reformed mafia heir turned investor. They didn't know his redemption was just another lie. Inside, soft jazz drifted through the candlelit room. Couples whispered, wine glasses clinked, and for a moment, the world felt almost normal. Almost. Gabriel leaned back, scanning the menu, while Clara reached across the table, fingers brushing his. "You okay?" she asked gently. He smiled. Always. But his eyes wandered. A habit, a reflex, the kind of awareness you never lose when you've spent half your life watching shadows for danger. That's when he saw her. Across the room, a waitress stepped into the light, her hair tied up, sleeves rolled neatly, tray balanced with practiced ease, her face half hidden, until she turned, and their eyes met. Time stopped. The tray trembled in her hands. The restaurant noise faded to silence. No mistake, no dream, no ghost. She was here, the woman he'd loved, the woman he'd lost, the woman carrying a secret that could tear his life apart. He hadn't seen her since the night she disappeared, the night he thought she'd chosen freedom over him, when in truth, she'd chosen survival. Now, here she was, standing a few feet away, her uniform tight over a figure he remembered by heart, and a small, visible curve beneath her apron. His breath caught. For a second, he thought the ground shifted, his pulse roared in his ears, the world blurred, but his focus locked on her, on the trembling lip, the flicker of panic in her eyes, the way her fingers clenched around the tray like she was bracing for impact. She turned away quickly, pretending to serve another table. But Gabriel knew that look. It wasn't fear, it was recognition. Clara's voice broke the silence. "Babe, you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." He blinked, forced a smirk. "Just remembering something." She laughed softly, unaware of the storm unfolding inches away. As the music swelled and glasses clinked, Gabriel sat there, trapped between the life he'd built and the life he'd destroyed. Every second felt heavier, the air thicker. He wanted to stand, walk to her, ask everything. But he couldn't. Not yet, not with Clara watching, not with the entire city's elite around him. So he waited, watched her move between tables, the woman who once knew every scar on his skin, now pretending he didn't exist. And with every stolen glance, he realized one thing. The past wasn't done with him. It had just walked back into his life, wearing an apron, carrying his child. Tonight was supposed to be perfect. Instead, it became the beginning of everything he thought he'd escaped. Some nights don't end when you leave the restaurant. Some follow you until you face what you ran from. The dinner ended in laughter and champagne. At least, that's how it looked to everyone else. But for Gabriel Moretti, the world outside those glittering walls had narrowed down to one truth. She's alive. She's pregnant. And she's been hiding. Clara's hand rested on his arm as they stepped out into the cold Chicago air. Cameras flashed again. Journalists shouting questions, but their noise barely touched him. His mind was somewhere else, back inside that restaurant, where a pair of brown eyes still haunted him across candlelight. He guided Clara into the Bentley. "Head home without me," he murmured to his driver, his voice smooth but hollow. "I've got something to take care of." Clara blinked. "Now, it's midnight." He smiled gently. "Just business, baby. I'll be home soon." The lie slid off his tongue easily, too easily. She nodded, trusting, and the car rolled away. Then he turned back toward the restaurant doors. The night wind bit his face, sharp and cold, but he barely felt it. Inside, the staff was closing up. Lights dimmed, chairs lifted. And there she was, Elena, standing by the counter, wrapping utensils, head down like she was invisible. But she wasn't. Not to him. Never to him. He stepped forward quietly. The sound of his shoes on the marble floor made her freeze. She didn't need to look up. She already knew that walk. Her voice trembled before she spoke. "Don't, Gabriel. Please, just go." The sound of her voice was like hearing a song he'd forgotten. Soft, breaking, real. He stopped a few feet away, hands in his pockets, fighting the urge to reach for her. "Elena," he said quietly, "you're supposed to be gone." She finally looked up, eyes glassy, exhausted. "I was." Silence stretched between them, thick, heavy, full of everything they hadn't said for 2 years. His jaw clenched. "You didn't even tell me you were alive. You let me think." "I had to," she cut in, her voice breaking. "You don't understand what you were becoming." He stepped closer, eyes dark. "I understand perfectly. I was becoming the man who could protect you." Her laugh was small, bitter. "Protect me, Gabriel. You were the danger." That hit harder than any bullet. He didn't speak. Couldn't. The truth had always been sharp between them. She'd left not because she stopped loving him, but because she couldn't survive the world that loved his power more than his soul. He studied her, his gaze falling to the small curve beneath her apron. It wasn't imagination anymore. It was real. His voice dropped to a whisper. "How far along?" Elena hesitated. 6 months. The air left his lungs. "Mine?" he asked, though they both knew the answer. Tears shimmered in her eyes. "Do you think I could ever be with anyone else after you?" That line shattered something inside him. Guilt, pride, maybe both. He took another step closer. "Then why hide it from me?" "Because I wanted him to be safe," she whispered, a hand instinctively on her stomach. "And that's the one thing your world can't promise." For a moment, the world shrank to 2 broken people, and the life growing between them. Outside, snow began to fall, silent, slow, like the city was holding its breath. Gabriel reached for her, then stopped himself. His fingers hovered inches from her cheek, trembling. "Elena," he said softly. "Come back. Let me fix this." She shook her head, voice trembling. "You can't fix what's built on blood." He exhaled, eyes burning. "I can try." She turned away, wiping her tears. "Then prove it. Walk away from it all. The money, the men, the name." His silence told her everything. She stepped back, whispering, "That's what I thought." Then she turned and walked out the back door, snow swirling around her, her figure fading into white. He stood there for a long time, frozen, staring at the space she left behind. For the first time in years, Gabriel Moretti, the man everyone feared, realized he was powerless. Not against enemies, but against love. And he knew one thing, for certain. The war he'd been fighting wasn't in the streets. It was inside his heart. Some truths don't set you free. They burn everything you built to ashes first. The following morning, Chicago woke under a pale gray sky. The city hummed with life, traffic lights blinking, coffee shops buzzing, horns blaring. But inside Gabriel Moretti's penthouse, silence ruled. He hadn't slept. The whiskey on his desk sat untouched, and for the first time in years, he couldn't think his way out of a problem. Elena was alive. She was carrying his child, and she wanted nothing from him except distance. The thought ate through him like acid. He stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, watching the city below. His reflection in the glass looked like a stranger, eyes hollow, jaw tight, suit immaculate, soul unraveling. A knock came at the door. His right-hand man, Dante, entered, tall, sharp-eyed, loyal since they were boys. "Boss, you good? You've been off since last night." Gabriel turned slowly. "Find out who owns that restaurant, the one on Lakeview." Dante raised an eyebrow. "The one you had dinner at?" Gabriel's silence was enough of an answer. Dante hesitated. "Gabriel, what's this about? Just do it." The edge in his voice made Dante nod and step back, closing the door quietly behind him. Gabriel had learned early that emotions were luxuries men like him couldn't afford, but love had always been his most expensive mistake. Hours later, the reports came in. Names, numbers, transactions, and one detail that made Gabriel's blood run cold. The restaurant wasn't just any place. It was under the quiet protection of a rival faction, the Rossetti family, the same family that once tried to take him out. If Elena was working there, she was in danger, whether she knew it or not. He slammed the file shut, heart pounding. The idea of her, pregnant, alone, vulnerable in the middle of enemy territory, twisted his insides into knots. And beneath that fear was rage, not at her, at himself, at the choices that forced her to hide. He left the office and headed for his car, his driver scrambling to follow. "Where to, sir?" Gabriel's voice was cold. "Back to Lakeview." But before he could leave the parking garage, a voice echoed behind him. "Going somewhere without me? Clara." She stood there in her designer coat, lips pressed tight, eyes narrowed, too calm, too knowing. He froze, jaw tightening. Clara, not now. She stepped closer, her heels clicking against the concrete. I asked you one thing when we got engaged, honesty. And last night, you disappeared right after dinner. Her gaze locked on his. So tell me, Gabriel, who was she? He hesitated. That was all the answer she needed. Her face hardened. I saw you watching her. The waitress. She gave a short, bitter laugh. God, you looked at her like you'd seen a ghost. He didn't deny it. Clara's voice lowered. Who is she to you? He could have lied. Should have lied, but something in him had stopped pretending long ago. She's my past, he said quietly, and maybe my future. The silence that followed was sharp enough to cut. Clara's eyes glistened. So that's it? You throw away everything for a woman who walked out on you? She didn't walk out, he said, voice low. I drove her away. Her hand trembled before she slapped him across the face. Not hard enough to hurt, just enough to remind him what pain felt like. Then she whispered, You'll regret this, Gabriel. You always do. She turned and walked away, her perfume fading into the smell of exhaust and rain. He stood there, unmoving, the echo of her heels fading into the distance. He didn't chase her, because he'd already made his choice. And the moment he did, the world began to move against him. Hours later, as he arrived near the restaurant, he noticed something off. A black SUV parked across the street, tinted windows, engine running. Dante's voice came through the earpiece. Boss, you're not the only one watching her. Gabriel's grip tightened on the steering wheel. He didn't know who they were yet, Rossetti's men, or someone worse. But one thing was clear. Elena wasn't just his past anymore. She was the next target. Sometimes love doesn't save you. Sometimes it gives your enemies the perfect weapon. They say the heart always finds its way home. But sometimes it walks straight into a trap. Chicago's streets were slick with rain that night, reflecting the neon lights of the city like shattered glass. From the shadows, Gabriel Moretti watched. He sat in his black sedan a few houses down from a narrow brick apartment building, the kind that told quiet stories about people trying to start over. And there she was, Elena, carrying groceries, shoulders hunched against the wind, one hand resting protectively over her stomach. She didn't know she was being followed, not by him, not by the others. He'd tailed her from the restaurant after her shift ended, staying far enough behind that she wouldn't notice. Every move she made burned into his mind. The way she glanced over her shoulder, the way she fumbled with her keys, the way she seemed afraid of something, not him, something else. His instincts screamed it. Someone else had found her too. He spoke softly into his earpiece. Dante, you in position? Copy that, boss, came the reply. Black SUV's still here. 2 men inside. Not locals. Gabriel's jaw clenched. Rossetti's? Could be. Or someone working for them. He exhaled slowly, eyes fixed on Elena as she disappeared inside the building. The lights in her apartment flickered on, warm against the cold rain outside. For a moment, he let himself imagine it, walking up there, knocking on her door, pretending they were just normal people again. No guns, no blood, no ghosts. But that life didn't belong to men like him. Some people dream of redemption. Others are cursed to destroy everything they touch, even what they love most. He reached for his gun, checked the magazine, then stepped out into the rain. The city's sounds faded, just the patter of water against concrete, his footsteps echoing through the night. He was halfway across the street when the SUV doors opened. 2 men got out. Heavy coats, purposeful strides. One reached under his jacket. Gabriel's voice dropped, calm and cold. Dante now. A gunshot cracked the silence, not from him, but from somewhere else. One of the men fell. The other ducked behind the SUV, firing back. Screams echoed from nearby windows. The neighborhood erupted in chaos. Gabriel dove behind a parked car, returning fire. Glass shattered. Tires burst. The smell of gunpowder filled the air. Inside her apartment, Elena screamed. Lights went out. Gabriel's heart lurched. He moved fast, cutting through the chaos, every step powered by instinct. Not the boss now, not the killer, just the man who'd once promised to keep her safe. He reached the door, slammed it open. Elena! She stood frozen by the kitchen table, eyes wide, trembling, clutching her belly. When she saw him, wet, armed, blood on his sleeve, her fear shifted to something worse, recognition and heartbreak. Gabriel, what did you do? She whispered. He lowered the gun, voice rough. They were here for you. I told you, she said, shaking. You bring danger wherever you go. I didn't bring it, he said, stepping closer. It followed you because you're mine. The words came out sharper than he meant, a possessive truth wrapped in pain, her eyes filled with tears. I'm not yours anymore, he froze. The silence between them stretched, heavy with everything they couldn't undo. But before he could answer, Dante's voice crackled through his earpiece. Boss, we've got a problem. Gabriel pressed the comm. What kind of problem? Those weren't Rossetti men. They were ours. The room went still. Gabriel's pulse stopped cold. Betrayal always comes dressed as loyalty. He turned toward the window. Down on the street, he saw the truth. One of the dead men still wore the black insignia ring of his own organization. His men. His orders. Someone had used his name to send them. Someone inside his empire wanted Elena gone. He backed away from the window, mind racing. There were only a few people with that kind of access. Dante, Clara, or one of his lieutenants. And if it wasn't Dante, he looked at Elena, pale and trembling in the flickering light. "Pack your things. You're leaving with me." She shook her head. "No. I can't go back into that world." "You already are," he said quietly. "Whether you want to be or not." He didn't tell her the rest, that the real danger wasn't from the streets. It was from inside his own house. In the Mafia, betrayal isn't a surprise. It's just a matter of when and who pulls the trigger first. They drove through the night without speaking. Sometimes silence says everything you're too broken to admit. The highway stretched empty under the pale moon. Raindrops tapped against the windshield in a steady rhythm, like a heartbeat trying to stay alive. Gabriel kept one hand on the wheel, the other near the pistol resting beside him. Every mile pulled them farther from Chicago, farther from the noise, but not from the danger. In the passenger seat, Elena stared out the window, arms wrapped around herself. Her reflection in the glass looked like a ghost, a woman caught between fear and memory. Every time the car hit a bump, she flinched, one hand instinctively on her belly. Gabriel noticed, but said nothing. Words between them had turned into weapons long ago. After 3 hours, he turned onto a dirt road lined with dying pines. At the end stood an old lake house. Silent, hidden, forgotten. A place he hadn't visited in years. He cut the engine. The night fell heavy again. "This is where we'll stay," he said quietly. Elena hesitated before stepping out. The cold air bit her skin, but there was something peaceful here. No sirens, no shadows. Just wind and water. Inside, dust covered everything. Gabriel lit the fireplace, its glow painting the room in amber light. For a moment, it almost looked like a home. Sometimes even killers remember how warmth feels. He found her standing near the window, watching the reflection of the flames. "You should rest," he murmured. "I can't." "Why?" "Because I don't know which version of you I'm safe with." That stopped him. He wanted to argue, but she was right. The man she once loved could turn into the man everyone feared, in a single breath. He exhaled slowly. "I'm not here to hurt you." "Then why does it still feel like you're holding me hostage?" She whispered. The words hit him harder than a bullet. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You think I'd let anyone near you?" After what happened, her eyes softened, just for a second. "You can't protect me from your world, Gabriel. You are your world." He looked away, jaw tight. "Then I'll burn it down." She blinked. "And when there's nothing left, then maybe we'll finally be free." The fire cracked between them, sparks drifting like small promises. She wanted to believe him. Wanted to see the man who once read poetry in her kitchen at 2 a.m., not the boss who ordered hits before breakfast. She sat down, exhausted. "I'm tired of running." "So am I," he said, barely audible. For a few quiet minutes, the only sound was the wind brushing against the windows. He took off his coat, draped it over her shoulders. His hand brushed hers, and time folded back on itself. The memories came rushing, their first night together. The laughter, the plans. Then the fights, the fear. The night she disappeared, her eyes met his. "You still drink your coffee black." A small smile flickered on his lips. "Only because you're not around to ruin it with cream." It wasn't forgiveness, but it was something close. Outside, the storm eased. The lake shimmered faintly under the moon. Inside, the fire burned low, a fragile peace neither of them trusted to last. Hen Gabriel's phone buzzed. One message, no name. They found her. His blood turned to ice. He stood instantly, scanning the shadows outside the window. The night that had felt safe seconds ago suddenly felt alive with threat. "Elena," he said quietly, "go to the bedroom. Lock the door." Her eyes widened. "What's happening?" "Now." She obeyed, fear rising in her throat. Gabriel checked the magazine, loaded the chamber, and turned off the lights. The house fell into darkness except for the faint red glow of dying embers. He crouched near the window, eyes adjusting to the dark. Through the trees, headlights. 2 cars, slow, deliberate. They'd been tracked. "Betrayal moves fast when it wears a familiar face," he whispered into his comm. "Dante, are you hearing this?" Static. No reply. He tried again. Nothing. Then a voice he didn't expect crackled through. Cold, calm, feminine. "Hello, Gabriel." Clara, his fiancée's voice. And in that moment, he understood. Love wasn't his weakness. Trust was. You can run from your sins. But they always remember the way home. Some betrayals don't happen in back alleys or boardrooms. Sometimes they wear a diamond ring and call you love. The headlights cut through the mist, crawling down the old dirt road like predators tracing a scent. Inside the lake house, Gabriel Moretti stood by the window, motionless, cold, watching the reflection of his own sins approach. The phone still buzzed in his hand. Clara's voice purred through the speaker, calm, sharp, deadly. "Did you really think I wouldn't find her, Gabriel?" she asked. "Did you think I wouldn't notice when you vanished in the middle of the night?" He said nothing. Words were useless now. Betrayal doesn't shout, it whispers. In the voice you once trusted most. "You told me she was gone," Clara continued. "I gave you everything. My loyalty, my name, my love. And all this time, you've been chasing a ghost." Gabriel's jaw tightened. "You don't understand." "Oh, I understand perfectly," she hissed. "You don't want a fiancé. You want absolution." The sound of tires grinding on gravel echoed outside. The headlights stopped. Door slammed. He stepped away from the window, gun in hand, eyes scanning the shadows. "Clara," he said evenly. "If you come here, there's no going back." Her voice softened, almost tender. "There's no back left to go to, Gabriel. You broke that the moment you looked at her, and then the line went dead." The silence that followed was thick enough to choke on. He moved fast, lights off, curtains drawn, but before he could reach the door, glass shattered. Bullets tore through the windows, warning shots, not meant to kill. From the back room, Elena screamed. He ran to her, kicked the bedroom door open. She crouched beside the bed, trembling, clutching her stomach. "Stay down," he ordered, pulling her to the floor. "Who is it?" she whispered. He didn't answer, because the truth was worse than anything he could say aloud. Outside, the front door creaked open, deliberate, slow. He raised his gun, waiting, listening. Footsteps, then a voice. "Easy, Gabriel. Don't do anything stupid, Dante." He stepped into the light, hands up, no gun drawn, his coat soaked with rain, eyes full of something Gabriel couldn't read. Gabriel's finger hovered over the trigger. "You working for her?" Dante sighed. "You left me no choice." "Loyalty, the one currency even kings can't counterfeit. She came to me," Dante said quietly. "Said you were losing control, that Elena was a threat. She showed me the orders, the same ones you signed, Gabriel. She said she was cleaning up your mess." Gabriel frowned. "I never signed anything." Dante nodded slowly. "Yeah, I know that now." Outside, another car door slammed, the sound of heels on wood. Then, her silhouette in the doorway. Clara, dressed in black, rain glistening off her coat, eyes glowing with heartbreak and fury. "Put the gun down," she said softly. "We're not here to kill you. We're here to fix what you broke." Elena's voice trembled from the hallway. "Clara, please." Clara's gaze snapped to her. "You don't get to say my name." For a long, painful second, no one moved. The storm outside rattled the windows like the world itself wanted to end it all. Clara took a slow step forward. "Do you know what it feels like to watch the man you love mourn another woman, to hold him at night while he whispers her name in his sleep?" Her voice cracked. "You made me a ghost in my own life." Gabriel's tone was steady, low, remorseful. "I never meant to hurt you." Clara laughed, small, broken. "You didn't hurt me, Gabriel. You erased me." She nodded to Dante. He hesitated. She turned, eyes softening for a fraction of a second. "You should have stayed gone, Elena." Gabriel stepped between them, blocking her line of sight. "Clara, don't. Sometimes the most dangerous weapon in the world isn't a gun. It's a heart that's had enough." She lifted her hand, not with a weapon, but a small remote. A faint red light blinked in the corner of the room. His eyes widened. "You didn't." Her voice was steady. "I told you, Gabriel. I'm just finishing what you started." He looked toward the wall, a timer, small, silent. Counting down, 30 seconds. He grabbed Elena's arm. "Go now." She froze. "What? Run." Dante cursed under his breath. "You're insane, Clara." But Clara's face was calm, almost peaceful. "Love makes us all insane." Gabriel yanked Elena toward the back door. The storm swallowed them whole as they stumbled into the rain, down the hill toward the lake. Behind them, the house burned with light, a single, blinding flash that tore the silence apart. The sound echoed across the water, a sound of endings. Some people burn bridges. Others burn everything that ever touched them. Gabriel hit the ground, shielding Elena as debris rained down. For a moment, there was nothing but ringing in his ears, the smell of smoke, the taste of ash. Then, her faint whisper. "Gabriel. The baby." He looked down, her face pale, lips trembling. His heart stopped. In one night, he lost the woman who loved him, the woman he couldn't forget, and the world he'd built to protect them both. And somewhere deep inside, a new war began. They say fire purifies. But when I opened my eyes, all it had done was erase the only pieces of me worth saving. Smoke still clawed at the sky, a crooked column twisting above the ruins of the lake house. Sirens wailed in the distance, their echoes bouncing off the water. I could taste the ash on my tongue. Elena lay beside me, barely breathing, her skin ghost pale, her heartbeat fragile against my fingertips. "Stay with me, please," I whispered, tearing my coat and pressing it against her side. Blood. Too much of it. I dragged her toward the car, every step slipping through mud and shattered glass. The storm had calmed, but the wind carried Clara's voice in my head, each word like broken glass. "You erased me." No, I had erased everything. Inside the car, I slammed the door, turned the key. The engine coughed, sputtered, came alive. "Hold on," I begged, flooring the gas. Headlights carved through the smoke as we hit the main road toward St. Lucia's hospital. Her hand found mine, weak, trembling. "Gabriel." "I've got you," I said. "You're going to be fine." A lie, because even if she lived, none of us would ever be fine again. The wipers beat time with my guilt. Left, right, like a metronome counting down to judgment. Every flash of lightning lit her face, the same face I'd once sworn to protect. And in that light, I saw myself, the monster behind the promise. I pulled up to the ER, shouting for help. White coats swarmed her, voices blending into static. "Gunshot wound, pulse weak, get her inside." And then they were gone, wheeling her through the doors, leaving me in the rain with nothing but the echo of my own heartbeat. Guilt is a strange thing. It doesn't kill you. It keeps you alive, so you can watch what's left burn. I sank onto the curb, soaked and shaking, watching the paramedics disappear into sterile light. Behind me, the horizon still burned orange, the last traces of Clara's vengeance consuming the house I built to hide my sins. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. A familiar voice, low, calm. "Dante, she's gone," he said. My stomach dropped. "Clara disappeared before we could reach her car. No body, no trace. Just the fire." He paused. "You really think she meant to die there?" I closed my eyes. "No, she wanted me to." A long silence. Then Dante sighed. "What now?" "Now?" I whispered, staring at the glowing hospital doors. "Now I pay for what I've done." He didn't reply. Just the sound of rain, hitting metal, hitting guilt. I hung up and looked at my reflection in the car window. Black suit, blood stains, hollow eyes. A man who had everything once, and lost it all because he couldn't tell the truth. Inside the hospital, footsteps echoed. A doctor approached, raincoat clinging to her shoulders. "Mr. Moretti?" I stood, heart in my throat. "She's stable," the doctor said. "The baby's alive, but she needs rest. You should go home. Clean up." I exhaled for the first time in hours, but the air still tasted like punishment. "Can I see her?" She nodded. For a minute, I walked down the sterile hallway, each step heavier than the last. Elena lay under the soft glow of monitors, her chest rising slowly. She looked peaceful, fragile, and I felt like a curse standing over a prayer. Her eyelids fluttered open. "Gabriel, I'm here." Tears cut through the soot on my cheeks. "I'm sorry. For everything." She smiled faintly, small, forgiving. "We'll be okay." I wanted to believe her. God, I did. But outside that window, Chicago was still burning. Every sinner dreams of redemption. But to earn it, he first has to survive himself. They say every man meets his reflection twice. Once in the mirror, and once in the moment he can't recognize himself anymore. It had been 3 days since the fire. 3 days since the house, the lies, the woman and the child I almost lost. The papers called it an accident. The cops called it arson, but I called it what it really was, karma with a match. Elena was still in the hospital. I visited at night, sat beside her bed, listened to the beeping of machines that sounded too much like my own pulse. She would smile when she saw me. Pretend the world outside didn't exist. Pretend she didn't notice the guards at the door. But I saw the fear behind her eyes. She knew I was at war, even if I hadn't declared it yet. In the mafia, silence isn't peace. It's pressure. It means the wolves are waiting for blood. Back at the club, the air smelled of smoke and betrayal. Dante poured 2 glasses of whiskey but didn't drink his. "The men are nervous," he said. "They heard Clara's alive." I didn't flinch. "She is." He studied me, the same way he used to study targets. "Then why haven't you gone after her?" I looked out at the rain streaking the window. "Because I don't kill ghosts." He leaned forward. "You're losing control, Gabriel. The bosses are circling. They want answers. And Clara's giving them her version of the story." "What story?" "That you torched your own safe house. That you betrayed your own blood." The laugh that left my mouth didn't sound human. Let them believe it. I'm done chasing the truth through other people's lies. But even as I said it, I felt the mirror crack inside me. Because lies don't need to be believed to destroy you. They just need to exist. That night, I walked alone through the old district, the part of Chicago that never slept, never forgave. The neon lights bled through puddles, painting the street red and blue. Every window was a mirror, and every reflection looked like a man I used to be. There are moments when time doesn't move forward. It collapses, folding everything you were and everything you'll ever be into one heartbeat. The shot cracked the night open like glass. Then, nothing. No sound, no city, just a hollow ringing inside my skull. Across the street, Elena fell back into the blur of headlights and rain. My body moved before my mind did, sprinting, shouting her name through the static. My knees hit the pavement beside her. Her eyes were open, searching for something I couldn't give. "Stay with me," I whispered, voice breaking. "Please, stay." People screamed. Tires screeched. Somewhere, sirens started up again, too familiar, too late. I'd lived through ambushes, raids, betrayals, but nothing prepared me for the sound of her breath fading into the rain. She reached for my face, fingertips trembling. "You promised." "I know," I said. "And I will. I swear I will." Her lashes fluttered, her hand slipped from mine. For one impossible second, the world just stopped. Then came the flood. Rage, guilt, a grief so raw it didn't even have a name yet. I pressed my forehead to hers. "Don't take her from me," I begged whatever was listening. Not like this. Not again. The sirens grew louder, red and blue lights splintering the darkness. I didn't move, couldn't. Someone grabbed my shoulder, shouting orders I didn't hear. Hands pulled me back. I fought them, cursed them, until the weight of it all broke through and I collapsed against the wet asphalt. You don't feel the cold when your soul is already freezing. I watched them lift her onto a stretcher, the paramedics' faces blurring into streaks of light, her hair dark against the sheet, her face half hidden, still and perfect. Then she was gone, vanishing through the ambulance doors like a dream I'd already started losing. Dante appeared beside me, rain dripping from his coat. He didn't ask what happened. He already knew. "She'll make it," he said quietly. "She has to." I shook my head. Someone knew where she'd be. Someone wanted to finish what Clara started. Dante's jaw tightened. "You think it's her?" "I think it doesn't matter. Not anymore." I looked up at the skyline, steel and smoke and sin stretching over us like judgment. Whoever pulled that trigger just rewrote the rules. He met my eyes. "Then what's the play?" "The play," I said, voice steady now, "is redemption. One way or another, because guilt can drown you, or it can teach you how to breathe underwater." Hours later, I stood alone on the hospital rooftop. Chicago spread beneath me, neon bleeding through fog, the sound of sirens fading into heartbeat rhythm. My reflection stared back from a puddle near my boots. Same eyes. "Different man. I should have protected you," I whispered into the night. "All of you." For the first time, I didn't mean it as an excuse. I meant it as a vow. Down below, the ambulance lights cut through the mist, carrying Elena toward another chance, another tomorrow. And somewhere out there, in the city's dark veins, someone was smiling at what they'd done. I used to run Chicago. Now I'd burn every secret in it just to bring her home. In one of them I saw him, the devil wearing my face. Tailored suit, tired eyes. Hands that built empires and broke hearts. He looked back at me like he was waiting for a confession. And maybe in a way, he got one. "You win," I whispered to my reflection. "You got what you wanted. Power, fear, control. But tell me, was it worth her tears?" The glass didn't answer. It just stared back, cracked and cold. Behind me, tires screeched. A black sedan rolled to a stop. Two men stepped out, suits, clean, deliberate. One carried a briefcase, the other, a gun. "Mr. Moretti," the first said. "The commission wants a word." My pulse slowed. "About what?" He smiled. "About loyalty." They escorted me to a quiet diner on the south side, the kind where the coffee's cold and the secrets are hot. Inside, 3 bosses sat in a booth. Old faces, older grudges. One of them, Don Ricci, leaned back with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "You're losing your grip, Gabriel," he said. "We need stability. Clara offers that." My jaw clenched. "Clara's a traitor," he shrugged. "So were you once. The only difference is, she survived it." Laughter, sharp, cruel. I stood, palms flat on the table. "If any of you touch Elena, I'll burn this city to the ground." Ricci's smirk faded. "Careful, boy. You've already proven you're good at burning things." In that moment, I realized the truth. The mirror doesn't show you who you are. It shows you what you've become. I walked out without another word. Rain hit the pavement, washing the city clean, or maybe just pretending to. In the distance, thunder rolled. But beneath the storm, I heard something else. Soft, familiar. Elena's voice. Not in the wind, not in memory. Real, close. She was standing across the street, hospital coat wrapped around her, eyes full of something I hadn't seen in years. "Faith, Gabriel," she whispered. I froze. Then a shadow moved behind her. Fast, precise, wrong. Elena. The gunshot split the night. They say time heals. But in Chicago, time only gives you room to reload. 3 days. That's how long it took before I stopped shaking. Before I stopped seeing Elena's blood every time I closed my eyes. Now there's no shaking, no tears. Just purpose. I spent the first night listening, letting the streets talk. By dawn, I had names. By sunset, I had faces. The first belonged to Rico Navarro, a courier too dumb to know whose strings he was pulling. He worked for Ricci's men. Ricci worked for the commission. And the commission was already whispering Clara's name like it was gospel. Betrayal travels fast. But vengeance? It travels faster. I didn't kick down doors or shout threats. Those days were gone. I invited Rico to dinner, my table, my wine. He sat there shaking, pretending to eat, eyes darting between my hands and the gun he couldn't see. Relax, I told him. If I wanted you gone, you'd never have sat down. He swallowed hard. Then why am I here? I smiled. Because I like hearing stories, especially ones about who tried to kill me. He cracked faster than I expected. Fear makes good fertilizer. The truth blooms quick. He told me what I needed. Clara wasn't working alone. Someone inside my own crew was feeding her intel. That's the thing about fire. It doesn't spread on its own. It needs someone to strike the match. By midnight, I was back in the warehouse district. The place smelled like oil, rust, and old sins. Dante waited near the loading bay, smoke curling from his cigarette. You sure about this? He asked. I looked up at the mezzanine, the offices where my lieutenants once toasted to loyalty. I'm sure about everything now. Inside, they were all there. 5 men, 2 women, all pretending not to be afraid. Loyal soldiers, or ghosts wearing loyalty's skin. I walked in slow, unarmed, hands visible. Every step echoed. Every heartbeat a metronome of control. Someone sold me out, I said. You all know what that means? They stared back in silence. Then one of them, Tony, shifted in his chair. Boss, we'd never... Save it, I cut him off. You'll get your chance to talk. I motioned to Dante. He locked the door. The sound was small, final. When you've lived long enough in darkness, you stop looking for light. You just make sure you own the dark. One by one, I asked questions. Watched eyes. Listened to breath. Guilt doesn't hide. It trembles. When it was over, I knew. It wasn't Tony. Wasn't the others. It was Luca, my oldest friend. The man who'd stood beside me at my wedding. He looked at me, jaw set, eyes soft. She came to me, Gabe. She said you'd lost control. Said Elena was a danger to the business. I thought I was protecting you. I felt something inside me crack. Quieter than anger. Deeper than hate. You protected me, I said slowly. By trying to kill her? He flinched. It wasn't supposed to go that far. The worst part about betrayal isn't the lie. It's that for a moment you believed it was love. I turned away. My voice came out steady even. You've got 24 hours to disappear. He blinked. You're letting me live. I met his eyes. No, I'm letting you remember. Dante waited until Luca was gone. You sure that was smart? Smart? I said quietly. No, but it was necessary. We stepped outside into the night. Chicago's skyline burned with city light. Beautiful, distant, cold. Every echo of that fire still lives in me. The world thinks I'm rebuilding my empire, but the truth is, I'm dismantling it, one ghost at a time. My phone buzzed. Unknown number, I answered. Silence. Then, her voice. Soft, familiar, dangerous. Hello? Gabriel, Clara. I froze, every muscle tightening. I hear you've been busy, she said, amusement curling around every word. You always did clean up your own messes beautifully. What do you want? She chuckled. What I've always wanted. To finish what we started. And just like that, the fire I thought I'd buried sparked alive again. Very war starts with a whisper. And this one started with her voice on the other end of the line. Clara, alive, smiling through the static, like the universe had decided to test just how much I'd learned about control. What do you want? I asked again, jaw tight. Closure, she said. You and me, we never got that, did we? I laughed once low. You put a bullet in my fiancé. I think that's pretty damn close to closure, she sighed. A sound soft as silk and twice as dangerous. Oh, Gabriel, you always make it so personal. This isn't about her. It's about balance. Balance. That word used to mean loyalty, respect, family. Now it just sounded like a corpse being weighed. Where are you? I asked. You'll find me when you're ready, she said. But you won't like what you see. The line went dead. For a long second, all I could hear was my own breathing, harsh, uneven. Then instinct took over. I called Dante. Trace the call. Already on it, he said. Within minutes, we had a location. The old Halstead warehouse, south side. Empty since the fire 3 years ago. Our fire. Some ghosts never stay buried. They just wait for you to come back. By the time we hit the road, the rain had started. Chicago looked washed in silver and regret. The kind of night that makes you question what redemption even means. Dante drove in silence. I loaded my gun. The same ritual I'd done 1,000 times. But this time, every click sounded like judgment. You sure you want to face her alone? He asked. I glanced at him. You think I have a choice? He nodded, understanding. Then let's make it count. We stopped 2 blocks away. Shadows and thunder for company. I stepped out, coat collar up, rain sliding down my face like confession. The warehouse stood in the distance, tall, hollow, waiting. One single light burned on the upper floor. I walked through the puddles, slow, deliberate, every step a heartbeat, every breath a decision. Inside, silence, dust, the smell of old gasoline and rusted chains. Then, her voice again, closer this time. You came faster than I expected. She stepped out from the shadows like she'd been born there. Black coat, red lips, eyes sharp enough to cut through steel. 3 years, I said quietly. 3 years you let me believe you were dead. She smiled. You never looked hard enough. I studied her. No hesitation, no guilt. Just power wrapped in perfume. The kind of woman who could start a war and call it love. Why now? I asked. Because, Gabriel, you've been pretending. She took a step closer. You tell yourself you've changed, that you're better. But deep down you miss it. The chaos, the control, the blood. She wasn't wrong. That was the worst part. I kept my voice steady. You came back for me, or to finish what you started. Her smile widened. Maybe both. Before I could reply, the sound hit. Metal grinding above us, a faint click. Sniper. I dove behind a pillar just as the first shot split the air. Concrete dust exploded inches from my face. Dante's voice came over the earpiece. You've got company, boss. 2 on the roof, 1 on the ground floor. Keep them busy, I growled. He laughed. Gladly. Gunfire erupted outside. Thunder answering thunder. I moved fast, cutting through shadows, hunting the one ghost that mattered. When I turned the corner, she was gone. Just the echo of heels on metal stairs fading into the storm. She wanted me to follow, and God help me. I did. I hit the rooftop, rain slashing sideways, wind roaring like vengeance itself. Clara stood at the edge, hair whipping wild, gun in hand. End of the line, I shouted. She turned slowly, eyes glinting. No, Gabriel. Beginning of the truth. Lightning split the sky, and for a second the world froze between us. 2 hearts, 1 history, and a storm that wouldn't stop until one of us fell. The rooftop was slick, steel beams shining like black glass. Wind howled between the towers. Below us, the city glowed, restless, watching. Clara stood at the edge, hair plastered to her face, the gun steady in her hand. Her coat snapped like a flag in the wind. End of the line, I said again, stepping forward. Every muscle in me screamed not to, but love and fury moved the same way. She tilted her head. You think you can control how this ends? Her smile was faint, brittle. You never could control me, Gabriel. Control. That word used to mean safety. Now it felt like a curse. I raised my weapon. Slow, deliberate. Put it down, Clara. I don't want to hurt you. Liar. Her voice cracked, a mix of laugh and sob. You already did. The day you chose her. Lightning flashed. For a heartbeat, the sky went white. I saw it then. Tears in her eyes, real, burning through the storm. I didn't leave you for her, I said. I left the life we built on lies. You left because she was pure, she hissed. And I was what? A stain you couldn't scrub clean? I took another step. You were everything. Until the killing started meaning more than the love. She flinched, just a flicker, but it was there, somewhere inside that storm of rage. The woman I'd once married still lived. Clara, I said quietly, it's not too late. She shook her head, voice trembling. It's already too late. You buried me the day you walked away. The truth hurt worse than the bullet I half expected, because deep down she wasn't wrong. I did bury her, under ambition, power, pride. Behind me, thunder rolled. Below, distant sirens wailed, the world closing in. Why come back now? I asked. She met my eyes. Because I wanted you to see what it feels like to lose everything. Then shoot me, I said, stepping closer, arms open. I'm right here, she blinked. Don't tempt me. I'm not. I'm giving you what you came for. The gun trembled. Her jaw clenched. Rain streaked down the barrel like tears she couldn't shed. You think this will make it right? She whispered. No, I said. But maybe it'll make it over. A pause. Then a click. Not the trigger, the safety. She lowered the gun. In that second, hope felt possible again. Fragile, terrifying, real. She stepped toward me, eyes softening, and that's when the shot came. Not hers, not mine. A sniper's round ripped the night apart. Clara's body jerked, once, crimson blooming across her shoulder. She fell forward into my arms, breath catching. Stay with me, I shouted. Her hand gripped my coat, blood warm against the cold rain. I told you, she gasped, voice fading. It's never over. I looked up. The rooftop opposite, a shadow moving, muzzle flash fading. Dante's voice cracked in my earpiece. Sniper down, but there's more coming. We gotta move! I lifted her, weight light, terrifyingly light. Each step toward the stairwell felt like walking through a nightmare I'd already dreamed. The city roared around us, thunder, sirens, gunfire. All of it fading under the sound of her breathing against my chest. A rhythm I'd lost and found again too late. We reached the service door. I kicked it open, staggered inside, blood slick on my hands. Clara looked up, eyes glassy but alive. Why, Clara? I whispered. Why push this so far? She tried to smile. Because I still loved you, even when I hated you. The words hit harder than any bullet ever could. Her hand slipped from mine. Not lifeless, but surrendering. She was still conscious, but barely. I pressed a hand to the wound, voice breaking. You're not dying on me. Not again. Below, engines roared. Dante's men closing in, sirens converging. The world was spinning toward its reckoning. I looked at her, rain dripping from my hair, jaw tight. You wanted the end? I said. Then I'll give you one, my way. They say every king eventually pays for his mercy. In Chicago, mercy doesn't buy forgiveness. It buys a bullet with your name on it. By dawn, the rain had stopped, but the city still looked soaked in guilt. Clara lay unconscious on the table in one of our safe houses, an old mechanic's shop I'd turned into a refuge years ago. Dante worked over her, hands steady, voice low. She's stable for now, he said, tightening a bandage. But she's lost too much blood. We need a doctor. I nodded, jaw tight. Find one we can trust. He hesitated. That's the problem, boss. After tonight, trust's in short supply. He wasn't wrong. News travels faster than sirens in this city, and by sunrise every name that mattered would know. Gabriel Moretti broke the code. He saved his traitor. My phone vibrated. A message from Luca. No words, just a photo. My mansion gates burning. I stared at it for a long moment, the flames reflecting off the screen like an omen. Then I smiled, small and cold. They're coming, I said. Dante exhaled smoke. You gonna run? No, I said. I'm going to finish this. I stepped outside, the alley still slick with rain. The city was waking up. Horns, engines, the hum of life pretending not to notice the bodies beneath it. The air smelled of gasoline and retribution. I built an empire on fear and loyalty. Now both were collapsing, one truth at a time. By noon, the warehouse was surrounded. Black cars, tinted windows, the quiet choreography of men trained to kill. The commission had sent their message loud and clear. Gabriel Moretti was no longer one of them. I stood at the window watching. My reflection looked like a stranger. Boss, Dante said behind me, there's still time to disappear. We move her, we vanish. South America, new names. I turned. You'd leave the city? He shrugged. I'd leave hell if you told me to. That was loyalty. Not blind, just tired. But I shook my head. No, running means she wins. Means they win. I looked at Clara, pale, motionless, and something inside me shifted. Not anger, not grief, just clarity. I'm done building kingdoms, I said quietly. Now I'm burning the throne, Dante smirked. Guess I'll bring the matches. We fortified the place. Sealed the exits, loaded the magazines, checked the sightlines. Every click echoed like a confession. Then, silence. The kind that only happens right before everything falls apart. The first car door opened outside. Footsteps, voices, a familiar one. Luca. I should have known he wouldn't stay gone. Betrayal has a way of coming home for dinner. Gabe, he shouted. You've made it hard to defend you, brother. I stepped into view, hands behind my back. You tried defending me with bullets, I said. Don't pretend you're family now. He laughed. But there was sadness under it. I warned you. Mercy is weakness. You saved her. Now you'll lose everything. I already lost everything, I said. That's what makes me dangerous. A pause. Then quietly, you can still give her up. Hand her to the commission, and you walk away alive. The offer hung in the air like a loaded gun. Life or love? Behind me, I heard Dante reload. Clara stirred. A faint sound. A breath. Alive. I looked back at Luca. Tell the commission they can have the city. He frowned. What? I smiled, slow, deliberate, because by the time they get here, there won't be a city left worth ruling. Then I pressed the detonator. A low hum, then the world erupted. Flames tore through the lower floors, swallowing metal and memory alike. I turned to Dante. Get her out. He grabbed Clara, slinging her over his shoulder. And you? I'll buy time. The roof cracked above us, smoke and thunder mixing into one final symphony. Chicago burning again, and this time, I was the match. As they disappeared into the alley below, I looked back one last time. The table, the tools, the ghosts, all of it gone. Mercy had a price, and I'd just paid it in full. Fire doesn't care about loyalty, or love, or the men who think they own the world. The warehouse was gone. Flames swallowed steel beams, memories, and mistakes alike. Smoke rolled over the streets of Chicago, curling into every alley and avenue like the city itself was choking. I woke on the pavement, face pressed into wet asphalt. Pain lanced through my side, every breath a jagged reminder of my mortality. And yet, I was alive. Survival isn't heroism. It's chance, and luck never visits men who have enemies waiting in every shadow. Dante helped me up, his face streaked with soot. Clara, cradled in his arms, was crying softly. Her eyes met mine. Relief, fear, something softer, more dangerous. Hope. "You're alive," she whispered, voice trembling. "I am," I said, forcing my knees to hold me. "But the city, Dante?" He shook his head. "They're already mobilizing. The Commission, Ricci's men, Luca's faction. Everyone wants a piece of you." My empire was ashes. And yet, even in ruin, it called to me. I helped Clara to her feet. She leaned on me, fragile but stubborn. "You shouldn't have stayed behind," she said. "I needed to make sure you got out," I said, even if it cost me everything. Her gaze sharpened, like she wanted to argue but knew words weren't enough. "I don't care about your empire, Gabriel. Not anymore, but don't die. Not like this." And for the first time I realized survival alone isn't enough. To protect her, I needed more than steel and fire. I needed strategy. We moved through the smoke and debris, every step a negotiation with death itself. Every siren in the distance, every shout from unseen men was a reminder. The Mafia doesn't forgive mistakes, it hunts them. I glanced at the burning warehouse behind us. The throne I'd built, the power I'd earned, gone, but that wasn't weakness. It was opportunity. Ashes don't just destroy, they give you a canvas to rebuild. Dante led us to a safe house on the outskirts, abandoned, fortified, quiet. Clara collapsed onto a cot, exhaustion breaking through her relief. I sat across from her, hands bandaged, face streaked with soot and blood. "Do you understand what this means?" I asked. She nodded. "They'll come." "You know they will." "Yes," I said, "and I'll be ready." The firelight from the city glowed faintly through the window, the skyline broken, scarred, alive. I studied her face in the dim light, the way it still held defiance and softness all at once. She had survived me once. I wouldn't let her survive me again. But the question remained, could I survive myself? I reached for her hand. "We rebuild," I said. "Not the empire, us. Family. That's the throne I'll fight for." She squeezed my hand, faint smile returning. "Then let's start." Outside, the city breathed fire and smoke. Enemies plotted, streets waited, but for a single heartbeat, in the quiet of that ruined safe house, we were alive, together. And for now, that was enough. The safe house was quiet. Too quiet. Clara sat on the cot, bandages on her arm, eyes scanning the shadows like she was still fighting even when her body screamed otherwise. I stood at the window watching the streets pulse below, every alley a potential ambush. Everyone who ever called themselves my ally was weighing their options, and every enemy was calculating exactly how far I'd go to survive. Dante was silent, checking his weapons with surgical precision. "Boss," he said finally, voice low, "they're moving. Scouts, enforcers. Some of your own men might be coming too." I didn't flinch. I let the rain dripping down the window blur my reflection. "I don't care who comes," I said. "They want me. They'll get more than they bargained for." Clara's hand found mine, gripping tight. "Gabriel, we need a plan." I nodded. "We fight smart, not just with guns. With fear, with knowledge, with control. If they want to take what's left of me, they'll step into the wrong streets at the wrong time. The thing about vengeance is that it's best served like chess. Every move measured, every sacrifice deliberate." By dusk, the first wave arrived. A dozen black cars circling the block, engine hums low, predatory. I could see faces through tinted windows, strangers and traitors both. A single misstep and Clara and I would be overrun. "Stay behind me," I whispered. Her fingers squeezed mine, silent affirmation. I wasn't just fighting for survival. I was fighting for her, and for a chance to finally be the man I pretended to be before the Empire destroyed me. The first shot rang out, distant, a warning. I stayed calm, letting Dante and the traps we'd set do the initial work. Men went down in shadows I had prepared months ago, their approach anticipated, their arrogance feeding our advantage. Clara watched, eyes wide but steady. "You planned this?" she asked quietly. "Everything," I said, "even how they'll regret it." By nightfall, the siege intensified. We moved through corridors, setting signals, using the city's darkness as cover, every heartbeat a countdown. Every footstep a warning, and then came the message I'd been expecting. My phone buzzed, a single text. "We know you're hiding her. Surrender, or the Commission takes everything you love." I read it twice, then tossed the phone aside. "You want war?" I said. Clara's grip tightened. "I'll follow you, Gabriel, always." The streets outside were alive with danger, but for the first time I didn't fear them. I feared the man I could become if I failed to protect her. Hours later, we regrouped in a hidden room. Maps spread across the table, plans scrawled in urgency. The city was a chessboard, and every loyalist, every enemy, a piece waiting to move. I looked at Clara, soft rain dripping from her hair, her eyes reflecting both fear and trust. "You ready?" I asked. She nodded, barely smiling. "I've never been more ready." The siege had begun, and for the first time, it wasn't just survival at stake. It was loyalty, love, and the man I hoped I still could be. In Chicago, shadows have names, and some of them wear the faces you once trusted. The siege had been raging for hours. Through the rain-slick streets, I could hear the hum of engines, the distant shouts of men who thought they could outsmart me. But it wasn't the outsiders I feared. It was the ones inside. Betrayal doesn't roar. It whispers, and it smells like your own blood on someone else's hands. Dante and I moved through the safe house like ghosts, checking every entrance, every vantage point. Clara sat quietly in the corner, shivering from the chill of adrenaline and fear. Her hand found mine again, a lifeline, grounding me in a storm of deceit. I had one certainty. Someone in my crew had tipped the commission off. Someone I had called family, and I would find them. I started with Luca. He had been loyal, at least in appearance, but his actions tonight had left no doubt. A trail of whispers, a fingerprint on every failure. He was clever, calculating, dangerous. A knock at the reinforced door, slow, intentional. I moved first, gun raised, heart steady. Dante followed, shadow to my shadow. The door creaked open. Luca stepped in. Face pale, eyes wide, not with fear, but recognition. He had underestimated the man he betrayed. Gabriel, he began. Save it, I said. Every lie you've ever told me. It ends tonight. The weight of the empire I had built pressed against my chest. Every betrayal, every secret, every bullet that had missed its mark. It all pointed here. Luca raised his hands. I only did what I had to. You were spiraling. She was a liability. I was protecting you. I laughed. Low, sharp, bitter. Protecting me? By betraying me? By trying to kill the woman I love? He flinched. It was the only way. I cut him off. No, the only way was to trust the people who trusted you. And you failed. You failed all of us. Rage and sorrow collided inside me. Every heartbeat a drum. Every breath a warning. I pressed the gun against his chest. Close enough for him to feel it. Close enough for him to remember loyalty. You'll leave, I said. Disappear from my city, from my life. And if you ever cross me again... He swallowed hard. I understand. He didn't. He would never understand the cost of loyalty, the weight of love, the price of mercy. I backed him toward the door, my eyes never leaving his. 24 hours, out, or I'll find you myself. The moment he disappeared into the rain-soaked night, I exhaled, but there was no relief, only the echo of what could have been, and what might still come. Clara stirred, weak but alive. I held her close. You saw him? She whispered. Yes, I said. The traitor has been dealt with. For now, she nodded, eyes tired but resolute. What's next? I looked out the window at the city, dark, wet, full of danger and whispers. Next, I said, voice low, controlled, we finish this siege, and we make sure no one ever threatens what we have again. Loyalty is fragile. Betrayal leaves scars. But love, even battered and bloodied, is worth the fight. Outside, the rain started again, washing streets, hiding footsteps, masking the approach of enemies I hadn't yet seen. Inside, we prepared for the night to come. Every shadow would be tested, every loyalty questioned, and in the dark, one truth remained. I would protect her, at any cost. In Chicago, survival is rare, but redemption, that's even rarer. The city was quiet now. The storm had passed, leaving streets wet, shining under the first light of dawn. No sirens, no gunfire. Only the hum of life beginning again. Clara lay in the cot, her hand in mine, breathing steady. The bandages were gone, replaced with clean sheets, sunlight streaming through the window. For the first time in weeks, I allowed myself to breathe. The siege had ended, the betrayers had been punished, and the ghosts of the past finally laid to rest. I looked down at her stomach, small and round with our child. Life we had both fought for, life worth every bullet, every betrayal, every sleepless night. I thought we'd never make it, she whispered, eyes glimmering with unshed tears. You're alive, I said, voice soft. We're alive. That's what matters. It wasn't about empires anymore. Not about vengeance. Not about loyalty bought with fear. It was about family. She smiled faintly, the way she did before the world had tried to break us. You kept your promise, she said. I nodded. I told you. I'd fight for us, no matter what. Outside, the city stirred, the hum of Chicago reminding me that life goes on. Messy, unpredictable, but worth holding on to. I pressed my forehead to hers. We start over, I said. Together. And for the first time, the weight I carried for so long lifted. The ghosts of my past still whispered, but they no longer had power over me. We left the safe house, stepping into the wet streets. Every shadow seemed smaller now, every threat distant. Dante waited at the car, giving me a nod. Silent acknowledgement of battles fought and won. The car drove through the city, windows down, rain-slick streets reflecting neon lights. We didn't speak much. Words weren't necessary. Our hands intertwined, steady, warm, a quiet declaration that we had survived, and we would survive whatever came next. Chicago could keep its darkness. We had light. Weeks later, in a small, quiet apartment far from the chaos, Clara held our child for the first time. I watched her, awe and love tearing through every scar I carried. Our little family, fragile but unbreakable. I never thought we'd see this day, Clara said softly. You did, I said, brushing a lock of hair from her forehead. You fought for it. We fought for it, and now it's ours. Redemption isn't given, it's earned. And the hardest battles often bring the sweetest victories. I looked down at my daughter, small and perfect, a heartbeat in my hands. And in that moment, all the darkness of Chicago, all the fire, all the blood, all the betrayal, faded into nothing. What remained was love, family, and a future we could finally call our own. Clara smiled, leaning her head against mine. We're home, she whispered. Yes, I said, voice low and steady. We're finally home. The city lights outside gleamed softly in the evening dusk. I knew the streets would always have shadows, that old enemies would still whisper our names, that Chicago would never stop testing us, but none of it mattered anymore, because we had each other, and in the end, that was everything. And so, the storm of Chicago faded. Loyalty tested, love reclaimed, and a family forged in fire. Gabriel and Clara survived, not because the world spared them, but because they fought for each other. If you felt every heartbeat, every betrayal, every triumph with them, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. More stories of love, danger, and redemption are waiting, and you won't want to miss a single one. Comment below, what would you have done if you were in Gabriel's shoes? Every choice has a consequence, but every story deserves to be heard. Stay with us, because the next story could change everything.